On today's Hashi, I'm discussing the July FOMC meeting decision and Powell's statements on housing, pending home sales, and weekly unemployment. Today is Thursday, August 1st, 2024. I am Byron Lazine, and the hot sheet starts now. The day we've all been patiently waiting for all week, Powell Day. Jerome Powell and the FOMC met on Tuesday and Wednesday, and this morning we get to break it down right here. Specifically, we break down what comments Jerome Powell and the FOMC had around housing, what questions were specifically asked on housing. We do this every single day after an FOMC meeting, as the markets and particularly real estate is waiting for the first Fed rate cut. I release those timestamps to BAMX members as well as the hot sheet show notes, as we do each and every single hot sheet day, which we do this show Monday through Thursday when the markets are open. You get those timestamps and all of that information to use in your communication, your marketing, your education, to your database right in BAMX every single day. Use code HOT to get into BAMX today. All right, it is August 1st, which means typically August, by the way, for real estate industry people, people tied to real attorney, agent, lender. You see August, a lot of people go on vacation, not a lot of things happening surrounding your business. There's business to be done for sure, and there's ongoing business. There's not big news or big moves. It's not conference season, right? That's September, October, BAM Mania, Las Vegas, bammania.com. Make sure you are there. Tickets are going very fast. But it's not any of those types of seasons. But this year, in particular, August is going to be active. August is going to be interesting for everybody in real estate, whether you're an agent or just a supporting cast of. August 17th is now 17 days away, NAR settlement. So here, as we start August, second month of quarter three, 17 days away from NAR settlement. But we've got bigger things today than that. We've got an FOMC meeting. You probably saw the headline. We're going to break down housing further. The headline is that there was no rate cut. They stayed the course where they've been in that 5.25 range on the federal rate cut, on the federal rate. Okay. From their statement, recent indicators suggest that economic activity has continued to expand at a solid pace. Okay. So they don't want the economy to stop expanding. They don't want it to overheat either. They kind of want it, this soft landing you always hear about. They want that solid pace. Job gains have moderated. That's good for the fight against inflation, right? The only other tool they have left, if they couldn't beat inflation down, was to break the job market. So the job market naturally moderating was good for the FOMC. The unemployment rate has moved up but remains low. So they're getting their cake and eating it too. Inflation has eased over the past years but remains somewhat elevated. In recent months, there's been some further progress towards the committee's 2% inflation objective. The committee decided to maintain the target range for the federal funds rate at that 5.25% to 5.5% that I just mentioned. In considering any adjustments to the target range for the federal funds rate, the committee will carefully assess incoming data, the evolving outlook, the balance risks. The committee does not expect it will be appropriate to reduce the target range until it has gained greater confidence. So other than that, Jerome Powell also said that, it's possible. We got to see another good 45 days of data. Basically, we get the same momentum the last 45 days over the next 45. You could suggest that in September, Jerome Powell is going to go ahead with the FOMC and make that rate cut. That's kind of what he alluded to, but he wasn't just completely blatantly saying it. He wasn't saying what the CME group is saying, which is there's 100% chance that at the September meeting, the FOMC will ease the rate. Okay, from 5 to 5.25, it's 86.5%. Now from 4.75 to 5 after yesterday, I think this went up. It's a 13.5% that they'll go down as low as 4.75 to 5. 0.5% there on that 13.5% chance. But 100% chance, according to the CME group, that the September meeting, we are going to see a cut. Now, Jerome Powell didn't say that. He didn't say 100% chance. He said, we could. Okay, it might happen. Here's the things that have to happen. We got to keep seeing the same thing we've seen over the last 45 days, the same type of momentum. Okay, he didn't come out there and guarantee it. Nick Timiraos, the Adam Schefter of the Wall Street Journal, when it comes to the Fed, FOMC holds steady, rate steady. This is on Nick's X account. No explicit signal of a September rate cut. And so, right, that's the consensus, that it wasn't a guarantee. He's not going CME group here and saying 100% we're going to have a September rate cut, but some very meaningful changes at the top of his statement. The dual mandate is back. Inflation has been downgraded from elevated to somewhat elevated. Now, this is an interesting statement. The dual mandate is back, meaning he highlighted that during this conversation with his written statement, with obviously his opening statement before he started asking questions. We're going to get some of the questions relating around housing. The dual mandate, remember, is get inflation down to 2% target. Okay. And then number 2 mandate is maximize employment. Okay. So why is that important that he's kind of emphasizing that again? Because the labor market is softening. We've got a unemployment report here that's fresh this morning as of 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. The labor market is softening. And if it softens too much, he'll have to react sooner. So he's almost giving himself the, hey, we see we see more softening in the labor market. That might give me more ammunition for a September rate cut. Maybe you see that 13.5% come true on the CME and you get a 0.5% rate cut. Okay. So the dual mandate conversation, I think, is important to pay attention to, because it might feed ammunition once again. Okay. Didn't commit to anything, left the door open though. That's the consensus there. Just now going on to the press conference. Okay. So press conference started by saying, my colleagues and I remain squarely focused on achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment, stable prices for the benefit of American people. Our economy has made considerable progress toward both goals over the past 2 years. Labor market has come into better balance. The unemployment rate remains low. Inflation has eased substantially from a peak of 7 down to 2.5. That's looking at that PCE. That's what they look at. We are strongly committed to returning inflation to our 2% goal in support of a strong economy that benefits everyone. Okay. Now let's go into where he actually mentions housing. A minute 38. He talks about housing in the prepared statements. Growth of consumer spending has slowed from last year's robust pace, but remains solid. Investment in equipment and intangibles picked up from an anemic pace last year. In the housing sector, investment stalled in the second quarter after a strong rise in the first. Improving supply conditions have supported resilient demand and blah, blah, blah. Now, 3 minutes and a half. My colleagues and I are acutely aware that inflation poses significant hardships as it erodes purchasing power, especially for those least able to meet higher costs of essentials like food, housing, transportation. Our monetary policy actions are guided by our dual mandate. So, boom, there again, tying dual mandate and housing together for the first time in the prepared statements, 3.5 minutes in, re-emphasizing dual mandate and tying that into the housing conversation. Now, there was only 2 questions yesterday. Howard Schneider from Reuters and Rachel Siegel from WAPO had questions that specifically related to housing. So just under 10 minutes in to the press conference was our first question from Howard Schneider from Reuters. And we'll go to his question. We'll go directly to Jerome Powell's response.
And just to follow up on that, specifically, in what ways right now, given all you've seen over the last few months in particular on shelter, on services, et cetera, in what ways are you not confident right now that inflation is on the way back to 2%?
I think it's just a question of seeing more good data. We have seen the last couple of readings have certainly added to confidence, and we've seen progress across all 3 categories of core PCE inflation. That's goods, non-housing services, and housing services. So it's really just we had a quarter of poor inflation data at the beginning of the year. Then we saw some more good inflation data. We had 7 months at the end of last year. We just want to see more and gain confidence. And as I said, we did gain confidence, and more good data would cause us to gain more confidence.
More confidence, the better. Let's keep pouring in the confidence. I'm good there on that one, Haley. More confidence, the better. Okay, let's just get a big old bottle of confidence brewing here over the next 45 days as we lead into the September meeting, 45 days or so. So we talked about this yesterday, and it might have been yesterday or the day before, that WAPO article that is about a year after the Wall Street Journal article that talks about if you pull owner's equivalent rent out of the way they track inflation, we'd be already at the 2% target. So he did say core PCE, whether it's goods, non-housing, or housing services, is getting better. In real time, when you take out the lagging measurement of, owner's equivalent and all this kind of stuff, it looks even better. It looks at 2%. It looks like we've been at 2% for maybe a year. That would make a case that, hey, you could have cut today. Certainly could cut in September, but he is starting to finally see some numbers in the PCE that reflect the direction that they want, the FOMC, and wants to keep brewing on that confidence. So about 19 minutes in, we had a question from WAPO, Washington Post, Rachel Siegel, that relates again to housing, and then we get a Powell response. So we'll jump into that.
It's highly uncertain.
Rachel.
Hi, Chair Powell, Rachel Siegel from the Washington Post. Thanks for taking our questions. On inflation, do the past few months of good reports look like what we saw last year, where you really had a lot of momentum with a few bumps in between? Would you characterize that kind of momentum as back on track at this point in the year?
Actually, what we're seeing now is a little better than what we saw last year. Last year, as we pointed out late in the year, a whole lot of the progress we saw last year was from goods prices, which were going down at an unsustainable rate, disinflating at an unsustainable rate. This is a broader disinflation. This has goods prices coming down, but we're also now seeing progress in the other two big categories, non-housing services and housing services. So, so the thing is, you got 1 quarter of that. We had 7 months of low inflation. You got 1 quarter of this. I would say the quality of this is higher, and it's good, but so far it's only a quarter. So I think we need to see more to know that we're to have more confidence that we're on a good path down to 2%. But as I mentioned, our confidence is growing because we've been getting good data, and things like the ECI report and frankly the softening in the labor market conditions, give you more confidence that the economy's not overheating. It doesn't look like an overheating economy, and it looks like an economy that's normalizing.
So Jerome Powell's saying this good momentum that we have right now that is building their confidence, meaning the FOMC right now, is of better quality than the momentum we had last year. And particularly because non-housing and housing services, that housing services data that has been lagging, Jerome Powell says it can take up to 2 years to get true readings the way they read it. Not if you go in just real-time data like we're looking at in the hot sheet. You can see that disinflation on rents across the board, and it's been going on for a year. That deceleration of rent prices anyway, and then in some points of the country, even negative. But it's of better quality right now. And remember, when we go to last year, when we had the momentum, okay, I'll go to, what will I go to? I guess I'll go to 1 year out. Yeah, I guess that would be the best way to do this. Okay, so this is Mortgage News Daily, of course. When we had the momentum last year in quarter 4, we had peaked before, at the beginning of quarter 4 at 8.03% on the 30-year fix. Then we had massive momentum in the fourth quarter, really good inflation reports, and we saw some significant drops all the way down to 6.63, 6.61 on December 27th. And there was this huge feeling coming into quarter 1 of this year that there was going to be interest rates as low as 5. I said, if you've been following the hot sheet here for a long time, no, don't. There's going to be bumps in the road. in quarter one, there was enough indicators that we were looking at here on the hot sheet that suggested that. And this is kind of like the question that Rachel Siegel asked, like, hey, the past few months of good reports, that's what we saw last year. We had really good momentum. And then we had a few bumps in between. Those few bumps in between that she's talking about are what we saw all of quarter one. There was a lot of bumps in between. Okay. So would you characterize that kind of momentum as back on track? If that kind of momentum that we had late last year is truly back on track, I continue to make the argument that you could see, you could reasonably say, nobody has a crystal ball or anything, but you could reasonably say that the 30-year fix then could go down maybe about 1.4 from our most recent peak, which again is about 7.5 if you go all the way back to April, 7.37, 7.34 if you go back to end of May, beginning of June. Okay, so let's just take the 7.34 number. If you got 1.4 off of that, that puts you into the low sixes. Okay, the low sixes, I think a lot of home buyers would be rejoicing in that number. You get something under 6 1/8, even under 6 1/4. We had a good day yesterday on the 30-year fix, but you get down to 6 1/4 and under, you're going to see some fluidity, some movement come back into the market. And so love the question from Rachel Siegel, because it's just talking about the momentum. Like, are there going to be more bumps? Is this going to be longer lasting? If it is, and we get a cut in September, how low could this actually go? All good things to be thinking about. Again, the way the CMA thinks about it, despite Jerome Powell's leaving the door open but not guaranteeing anything, the way the CME sees it, September, we're at 100% chance of a rate cut. So we keep getting good inflation reports between now and then. The debate just becomes, is it a quarter point or is it a half point? Okay. And so that remains to be seen. We'll see. We'll continue to follow it here, so you have the updated information each and every step of the way on the hot sheet. All right, pending home sales data is out. So a lot going on here today. Pending home sales rose 4.8% in June. Another positive for the real estate market. Okay, 4.8% in June. After having a down May, the index is sitting at 74.3. The index is versus 100. That is relative to 2001, so well off of that mark. But the areas that are doing the best, the South and the Midwest, South coming in at 89.3, South up month over month at 6.3%, despite rising inventory, particularly in that region. Midwest at 73.7, up 4.7% on pending home sales. And you have the Northeast at a 65.5, up 3% month over month. Northeast being hit the hardest with the inventory issues. The West at 58.4, up 3.4% on pending home sales. So all four major regions across the U.S., according to NAR, up on existing home sales here in June. And, I think when May's down and then June's up, it tells you that this is going to be a little bit of a spotty market. I don't care what time of year it is. If you get an interest rate down to 6, even if it's late September, if it's October, whatever, you're going to see some more interest in the market. You're going to see more demand than you've seen in what maybe you would consider June or some other month to be a better month seasonally, historically and seasonally. But there has been this pent up waiting game, sideline sitting, waiting for a rate that makes sense for somebody to get off of their current rate. All right. We just also had a new release this morning from on the unemployment data. Okay. So Department of Labor puts this out every single week. And in the week ending July 7th, we had 249,000 on unemployment. That's an increase of 14,000 from the previous week's unrevised level of 235. You kind of see the trend line. It is moving up. It's moving up and to the right. We're just up over 4% on unemployment. Jerome Powell really emphasized that dual mandate conversation when he spoke yesterday, that they don't want to see unemployment. They don't want to be talking 4.5 numbers. They certainly don't want to be talking 5. Okay. Labor breaks, you're going to see very speedy rate cuts. You're going to see, deeper rate cuts because the dual mandate is important. He reemphasized that. Can't let labor break, because that would that would really encourage potential recession conversations, not only come up, but recession to in a meaningful way to maybe start taking shape. Okay. 10-year treasury down 4.007. We are almost at a 3 handle. We're almost back to 3.9 territory. Went down to 0.006. Let's go ahead and give it a refresh, see if we can get anything lower. Okay, it's bouncing right there, but down at the lowest level we've seen in weeks or months even. 30-year fixed yesterday came in at 6.7. This could go lower today. It's a beautiful thing when you see this trending downward. All right. We've got all of the hot sheet show notes available for you. As we do every single day. We do the show every single Monday through Thursday that the markets are open. You have the timestamps and the quotes from Jerome Powell if you want to put that into some of your email marketing, some of your database marketing, as well as the pending home sales data, as well as obviously the weekly unemployment, everything else that we covered here today. You also get all of the slides download available for you inside of the hot sheet show notes. Inside of BAMX, you also get done for you content every Friday. Tomorrow we'll be dropping a new batch, BAMX in a box. Okay, done for you social templates, email templates, blog, video scripts every single Friday. Every month we have new courses. We have live streams in our office hours and the Facebook community, all included inside of BAMX. You'll be blown away when you see the deal that we're offering you to get into that. Use code HOT to get 10% off of that deal. Link down below. All right. Hope everybody has a great rest of the Thursday, great week heading in. If you're interested, I put up a new BAM interview. Steve says, beautiful day in Naples. I will see you down there, Steve, in maybe just a couple weeks, week or two. But if anybody's interested in the interview I did with Jared James and his son, Grayson, the intern, on what a 17-year-old kid is doing to make a ridiculous amount of appointments over the summer, go check that out here on the main channel. And then tomorrow I'll be back on Knowledge Brokers Podcast over on our other channel at Knowledge Brokers Podcast. That's on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple, wherever you listen, obviously, or here on YouTube. You can go over to at Knowledge Brokers Pod and get the new release tomorrow. All right. Have a great Thursday. Have a great weekend. Be productive, be healthy. And until next time, toodaloo.